Hey guys, so we got some story time. So I had this guy come into the shop about 3 weeks ago, and he's been here before. We've done some stuff for him. He's worked on his truck. Maybe worked on a couple buddies' trucks because he's got brought a couple cylinder heads. Nice enough guy. A couple weeks ago, he brought in a set of fuel injectors. So 2005 Dodge truck. Now I realize that I'm going to go off a little bit of a tangent. I don't show a lot of stuff common rail wise on the YouTube channel because I do a lot of mechanical stuff, and I started doing mechanical stuff. We are going to start doing more common rail stuff, but 80%, maybe even more than that, of our business is common rail related, whether it be rebuilding engines or dealing with some injector stuff or whatever. A lot of the stuff I actually deal with is common rail stuff. So I'm not new to common rail. I do common rail stuff all the time. Like every day I'm working on common rails. So, and I worked on common rail trucks for many, many, many years. So I'm not new to this. I know lots of people like, oh, well, you know, he just does 12 valves. No, I do more common rails than I do 12 valves. Or mechanical engines, I should say. Anyways, so this guy brings in these injectors, wants me to test them. Yeah, no problem. Drops them off. He calls me back the next morning and said, hey man, I found a set of used injectors. Don't test those ones. I'm going to put these used injectors in. All right, cool, no problem. Just come and grab these. I haven't even started on them yet. No big deal. So he brings in, or he comes in, grabs the injectors. Away he goes. Like I said, this was a couple weeks ago. And maybe 3 weeks ago. Anyways, doesn't matter. A couple weeks. He called me Tuesday. No, it was last week. He called me last week and said, hey, I think I'm having a problem with my engine. What should I do? And I said to him, well, what's it sound like? He said, like, it doesn't sound good, and it's barfing oil. And I said to him, well, that's not good. He's like, no. He said, I think I'm going to bring the injectors and get you to test them. And I said to him, okay, all right, so you're going to bring the injectors that were in the truck or the used ones that you bought? And he's like, well, I'm going to bring the used ones that I bought. Okay. He brought the used ones that he had bought. And I was standing at the front talking to him, and I should have taken a picture of him because he actually took them back. But I should have taken a picture, and the number 6 nozzle was smashed, like crunched. And I said to him, man, there's no point in me testing these injectors. This one's junk. So I don't know if it was like that when you put it in, or if the engine's come apart, so I'm tapping in the engine, and now the engine's got to come apart. And he said, okay, I'll pull the engine out. So he pulled the engine out, pulled the cylinder head off, and brought the engine here. We're rebuilding it for him. And I wanted to, the reason for this story is he brought his original injectors in, thinking that he had a rail pressure, or he had a rail pressure problem was being his issue. Truck was running decent, but he had a rail pressure issue. So he thought that putting injectors wasn't going to fix it. So he brought his 6 injectors in that were in the truck. I tested them today because we're building this new engine for him, and they all tested good. So the injectors that he put into this truck killed his engine. Now, I have the piston, number 6 piston out of it. And this is the number 6 piston. Obviously, we've cleaned it. This is the number 6 piston out of it. So I said to him, you're having a rail pressure problem. You could have, bad injectors, and that's the reason we tested the injectors that were in it. And that wasn't the issue. Come to find out that his rail pressure relief, which on the 5.9s had problems, not all the time, they definitely had problems, was leaking by all the time. That's why he was having hard starts and all that type of stuff. It wasn't the injectors that were the problem. So, moral of the story here is he bought a set of used injectors, used good injectors, and they cost him an engine. And it's because he didn't want to spend the money testing the injectors. So when you guys are diagnosing engines and diagnosing this stuff, you need to sometimes think outside of the box a little bit maybe. And if you buy a set of used injectors from somebody, don't assume that they're good. If they don't have a fresh test sheet in a bag and they haven't been put back in since they ran, I don't recommend putting them in, because that's like less than 200 miles and it killed the engine. So yeah, I'm going to say that likely the injector was damaged to start with, is what I'm going to say. And this cost him an engine. So a $147 pressure relief valve is what he bought, or I shouldn't say new, he bought a valve from somewhere. Cost him $150 for the piece that he bought. And that $150 piece cost him the engine. So now we're completely rebuilding the engine, because this is what the piston looks like. One of the other pistons was kind of funky looking as well, for the sake of testing a set of injectors, which testing the injectors for me, you're about $400 Canadian for testing all 6. So for $400, and it's now costing him, like, because we're doing some upgrades and stuff to the engine, like $8,000. So he bought the used injectors. I don't know what he paid for those. And now he's putting an engine in the truck. So the labor, doing all the switching, he's doing it himself. He's a mechanic. Guys, don't cheap out on stuff like that, especially on common rail stuff. A bad injector will very quickly turn into an engine. Very quickly. Because it's not like a 12 valve, and you gotta look at this. Lots of guys are like, oh, well, it doesn't matter, the injector only fires, you know, when it's told to. With a common rail, if the nozzle is leaking, if the truck is running, it's shooting fuel in. Because it's a common rail system, it constantly is fed with fuel. Where with a 12 valve, it only leaks fuel when the plunger is pushing on the injection line. Well, when the plunger is moving up, loading the injection line for its pulse. The rest of the time, it's not leaking. With a common rail, it's leaking all the time. So, yeah, if you're monkeying around with common rail stuff, guys, there's lots of places around to have injectors tested and all that stuff. But if you don't have a set of good, used, tested injectors with test sheets, I personally wouldn't run them. I wouldn't take the chance. Even if you had to buy new injectors. Like, I'm not a, you know, like, I prefer myself to buy a good quality rebuild. Not a cheap one, not junk off of eBay or whatever it may be. A good quality rebuild. Now, I realize they're not cheap, but, you know, if you, let's say, spend $2,500, we're going US dollars here, $2,500 to $3,000 US for really good rebuilt injectors, you put them in and the engine doesn't run right, you know that it's the engine. If you're putting a new engine in the truck, you really should be putting new injectors in the truck, in my opinion. So, you know, guys, take that for, you know, take it as you will. You know, don't cheap out on that. Have the injectors tested. If you think there's something wrong with the injectors, test the injectors. Or if you have a hole, let's say you have a cylinder, you know number 6 cylinder isn't firing properly. Take number 6 injector, put it in number 4, and take number 4 and put it in number 6 and run the truck quickly. If the problem moves, you know that there's a problem with the injector. If the problem doesn't move, it's something wrong with the engine. But in this case, in his case, if he would have just left the injectors here and tested them, he would have known the injectors were good, and he would have been now looking at something else. The rail pressure relief, the CP3, whatever it may be. I'm 99% sure it's the pressure relief because he brought it, because it was actually, the rail was still on the head, or on the engine when he brought it. And we just took the air blower, and you could blow through it with the air blower. Couldn't blow through it with your mouth, but with 175 PSI, you could blow through it, and it shouldn't even think about leaking at 175 PSI, being it's holding back thousands of PSI, right? So just, you know, word for the wise, be careful, because I hate to see, guys, I hate to see a guy kill his engine because of that. I really do. I hate to see a guy kill his engine because he didn't take a step, especially didn't take a step that he knew he should take. He knew that he should be testing them. And there again, if you're buying used injectors, make it a thing, like unless you're buying them really cheap, make sure that either they're tested or you make it where the guy drops them off to somewhere to have them test and you pay to have them test. Yeah, it sucks to spend $400 on a set of injectors to have them tested to find out they're no good. But wouldn't you rather find out they're no good than having to put an engine in your truck? Come on, guys. You know, like, smarten up. So, hopefully, I hope this saves at one person an engine. If this video saves one person an engine, just one, it was well worth my time to video it and edit the video and all that stuff. So, remember, it's not rocket science. If you're going to be dumb, you better be tough.
Hey guys, check out the merch store, CUTTERUPRob.com, link in the description, for all the new merch that I just dropped. Help out the channel.